Hi, I'm CJ and this is my RC channel. This is the first in a series of videos where I am going to be building the Axial Capra 1.9 Unlimited Trail Buggy. This is a 1/10 scale crawler, four-wheel drive vehicle, and I went over most of the car in an unboxing. In this video, I want to kind of lay out some of the stuff that I'm going to be adding to the kit to complete it. These kits come without tires. They come with the necessary body panels that you need to paint, and they come without any electronics, so all of that is up to you. I went with the Concepts landmines in the green compound. This is one of the best tires on the market. The other tire that is in that same level is the Hyrax by Proline. This, depending on the terrain that you're going to be crawling on, is arguably a better tire by a little bit. So I went with a set of the landmines. I have a set of Hyrax as well, which I am going to be using on the old SCX-10 that I'm rejuvenating. I went with a set of foams that are a single foam. I may change to a dual compound foam at some point and see how those do, but I thought I'd start here. I'm going to be using ProTech RC. It's a Premier White friction and noise reducing grease. I'm going to be using this in the buildup of the drivetrain, gearbox, and transmission. These are the servos that I went with. This is the recommended servo for the Dig. It's a Spectrum servo, SX107. And I went with, for my steering servo, an EcoPower servo. This is very waterproof as servos go. Some servos are really water resistant. Most servos aren't waterproof below 3 feet to a meter. So, you know, bear that in mind when you're doing, you know, choosing a servo. None of them are completely waterproof. I'm going with small battery packs. This is a ProTech battery. It's 1400 milliamp, 3-cell, and it's a 90C. I went with the Hobby Wing Axe setup, combination speed control and motor. If you want to go with one, you really need to go with the other because they have a proprietary connector for the sensor cable. That allows this to actually be a waterproof solution. Again, it's probably not waterproof beyond a certain depth, but if you're driving I mean, unless you're scuba diving with your crawler, you really don't need it to be extremely waterproof. You just want to be able to wade through a creek or something like that and not have your car stop and have to carry it home. I picked up a few little items to bring some realism to the kit, since it's kind of a desert racer styled vehicle. I'm definitely not going to use the winch, not that there's any place to put it on this vehicle. But you know, the jack, the shovel, the axe, I'll probably strap to the roll cage in strategic locations, as well as 1 or 2 fire extinguishers, just to give it a little more of a realistic look. And those are by Yeah Racing, and this is a whip antenna by Exclusive. These are very inexpensive. They're $7 or $8, and I just couldn't resist. It's nice to have that, you know, flexible bobbing antenna. Just kind of, again, gives a look of realism to the vehicle. It's not a terribly realistic looking vehicle, and that is largely due to the cockpit. I'm not going to try to do anything crazy with the interior on this vehicle. It's just not a vehicle that you are going to try to create a truly realistic look. I'm adding some things to kind of give a little bit of suspension of disbelief, and I will probably weather these items, and I'll probably do an entire tutorial on painting, how to weather items and make them look more realistic than just a chunk of plastic. I've got a couple of pinion gears here, 11 and 12 tooth, and that pretty much sums it up. I've got an interesting paint scheme planned out for this, and I'll show you how that goes later. I picked up some paint masks that I like, and they're going to create an interesting look. We'll see how that goes. So it is about time to open the box and start the assembly, which I believe is going to begin with the front axle. One thing that Axial is really good about is their instructions are usually really good. There were a few issues with the instructions for this kit. They may have been fixed, they may not have been. We'll find out as we go through here. But they do a very good job of organizing their kits. For example, Section A is Bag A. Everything for the front axle is all right here in Bag A. It makes it fairly easy to follow along, figure out what you're doing, keeping things organized. Now they give us thread locker and grease. I may use their grease for the axle, but I'm probably going to use this for everything else, and I may even use this for the axle. I'm going to peruse the instructions for a minute and find out exactly what kind of grease they're giving us. Also, if you've never built an Axial kit before, definitely read these. Even if you have, it's a good idea to review these. This is just kind of little visual aids that like little road signs, literally. For example, the 4 arrows here ensure free movement. The rounded arrow ensure free rotation, ensure proper orientation, push firmly. The side that is shown, like the left side or the right side being shown, assemble other side the same. Screw partially, do not over tighten. You know, things to pay attention to, and then various types of oil. Apply clear grease, fill with silicone oil. That's probably going to be seen in the shock section. Apply high pressure black grease. Apply thread lock, very important. If you don't have your own products, such as your own thread locker or grease of your choice that you are planning to use, and you're familiar with what you're going to be using, definitely use what they have and follow their recommendations for where you should use it. Now, grease should be used. You don't want to be overly liberal with grease. When you're building little gearboxes, for example, these little guys here, if you put too much grease in here, like let's say you're trying to prevent water from getting in, you want your crawler to be as waterproof as possible, and so you fill this chuck full of marine grade waterproof grease, which a lot of people used to use in the crawler community, may still, some of them. If you put too much grease in here, it is not going to turn. You're going to bind it up. It'll still rotate, but it's going to require a tremendous amount of energy. It's going to be a huge drag on the motor, and you're not going to be happy with the performance of your crawler, and you're going to wonder, you know, I spent all this time building, why isn't my crawler working well? And you know, just overpacking these things with grease, you don't need to kill them. You just need enough that it's going to stay on the gears, because if any excess is going to get thrown off to the you know, onto the sides of the case anyway. So, you know, use your best judgment, but probably better to err on the side of less. If you think maybe I'm putting in too much, you definitely are, would be my recommendation. So I've thought about it. I've looked at what they've got here. I am not going to use their grease or their thread lock. I'm sure they're good product. I'm not going to throw them in the trash. I'll hang on to them. I may find myself needing them at some time. I may be out of my usual stuff. I'm going to be using TLR blue thread lock. Even though that's red, it's probably a blue type grade. I doubt they're giving us true red Loctite. If you've ever been a mechanic, you're familiar with the name Loctite. I've worked on cars aplenty, and red Loctite is one step away from permanency. It's one step away from liquid weld. Even blue Loctite, you want to be careful how much you use. Don't go overboard with it, especially if you're screwing into plastic. Metal to metal, I mean, they really shouldn't be asking you to put Loctite in anything that screws metal into plastic, because plastic basically is its own Loctite. But metal on metal, you want blue thread lock. I would put it at the beginning of the screw. Like if the screw is, say, this long, just put it on the end, just a little drop, you know, wick it around 360, and you know, tap off any extra. You don't want it to be excessive, because it can, if you put too much on, you can strip bolts trying to get them back out again when you're doing maintenance, because the Loctite is fighting you if you put too much of it on. You're trying to prevent the bolt from unscrewing on its own from vibration and you know, repetitive back and forth movements of objects. You're not trying to glue it in. So you know, not to go over that too much, but be careful, you know, something to think about. So I'm gonna get a couple of little trays for parts. That's interesting. They've given us some unsealed bearings. I'm sure they have a reason for that. Maybe they're just completely internal and they're not going to run up against anything that's going to be a problem for them. So, on to the build. So, first step, we need this. It doesn't look like we have differentials. It looks like we've got lock axles. In other words, this is going to be where a differential would be, and we have these kind of spade shaped flattened out axle, and they are going to fit in on either side like this, and there is no differential rotation. So the left front wheel is going to rotate exactly as much as the left front wheel. This is going to make for really good crawling. It's not going to make for the best turning, but since generally you're running in loose terrain, you know, gravel, sand, or you're trying to get purchase on surfaces like rock, you're trying to climb up something and you don't want a differential dropping power off from one wheel to the other. So that's good. So we have our gear. This is our ring gear. I'm just kind of checking stuff out. I was just looking to see if there was a tooth count stamped on here, and there is not. Not that that's a critical issue. Okay, so we need 6 M2x8s. So I'll just rotate it to line the holes up, and just confirming that wrench size, yep. So, and just to kind of demonstrate how much Loctite I'm talking about here, that's it. That's almost a lot. Because see, once you've got it down here at the tip and you start threading it in, it's gonna spread right up the side of the bolt. I must have the wrong size here. Oh, those aren't 8. What was I thinking? Those are M3s. These are M2s. Can't believe I didn't notice that immediately, and I need that size wrench. Now, don't tighten these down, just get them close to bottom, and then we'll tighten them in a star pattern, just to make sure that that ring gear is lined up properly. Okay, now as I said, we're gonna do a full tightening in a star pattern. And then go around one more time, just to be sure. Don't try to get them crazy tight. The Loctite's gonna do its thing. And unless you're changing the ring and pinion for some reason, you're not going to be back in here messing with this. I mean, you'll be cleaning parts, but that's about it. So that makes sense that these two bearings that are unsealed, and I'm going to go ahead and grease these bearings up. They don't appear to have any grease in them. They look pretty dry. So I did not get everything I needed. Microfiber cloth. Now what I'm doing is I'm holding the inner bearing reese between my thumb and finger, and I'm rotating the outer reese so that the grease is spread around. Now I'm not going to be doing this to all of the bearings. It's not necessary. The majority of the bearings here are sealed bearings. For example, these bearings with the black rubber seals are going to have grease inside them. That's what the seals are for, to keep that grease from coming out. I considered the idea of going with a ceramic kit since there are so many bearings. I didn't actually price it and look it up, so I can't give you information on that, but it's probably going to be very expensive. I mean, there's so many bearings in this kit. This is just, I mean, this is the number of bearings you would have on a lot of RC cars for the entire car. This is just for the axle and the portal assembly. So I would guess a ceramic kit would be upwards of $150 to $200. That's just a ballpark. So okay, orientation is important. If you're looking at the axle, there's two holes here and here. These are probably to mount the servo mounting bracket. So I'm placing the axle facing this way with the holes facing forward, and that means I need to put the ring and pinion gear in like that. So that's my direction. So when you come to situations like this, always make sure to carefully look at the piece and figure out what your orientation needs to be. So let's see, we need pinion gear. We're gonna need, let's see, looks like 5x14 and a 5x11. So that's probably one of these and one of these. And you can always hold them up to the legend to confirm. Looks like we're good to go there. So the larger of our two bearings, the 5 by 14 by 5, goes down the shaft like this. Now, okay, and here's our pumpkin. And we need to grease this up. So what I'm going to do is just put a little bit of grease, just a little bead around the ring like that. Nothing dramatic. That should be plenty. Because even though it's not top to bottom, it's going to get spread around. That's actually a lot of grease when you think about it. Once this gear meshes, it's going to rotate around. In fact, I can demonstrate that pretty easily. Let's just slide this in, and proper orientation for this is I just want to make sure. That's a bad drawing there. And that doesn't give us much more help. Yeah, okay, there we go. I just wanted to make sure that, because the outdrive is, I would assume it comes out the top, and it does. So this should just snap in here. Okay, now I'm going to rotate this around a few turns. And I'm going to pop this back out. And as you can see, the grease is spread fully around there, and it's completely covering our pinion gear and our ring gear. So we're good to go. And once this actually, gets wound up with a motor on it, that grease is going to get, any excess is just going to get tossed off to the inside. So, M2 by 16, 4 of them. Again, kind of go in a star pattern for stuff like this. And don't, when your first one hits bottom, don't crank down on it. Just get it in place and then work your way around to the rest of them, and then do a final tightening when they are all down. And yes, I could be using my powered screwdriver for this, and even with a clutch, it still don't feel like doing it. I'd rather do this by hand and make sure I'm not, being too harsh on this stuff. The plastic might be a little soft. I'd rather not strip something out. So don't over tighten these, because the plastic does feel reasonably soft. Okay, great. Okay, now we got to start assembling our portals, so we can set that aside for the moment. And let's see, we're going to need a pair of these. That's correct, those are the 10 by 15 by 4s. And we're going to need these two big guys here. And I'm basically setting up to do two at the same time. And let's see, 1, 2. And here are our two out drives. Okay, so our big one goes in the top of the main body of the portal. Just slide that in. And then one of our small ones goes in here, like that. I'm just going to repeat the steps on the opposite side. Okay, and then on the caps, we have a small one and a fat one. Nope. Okay, that's interesting. That must be 4 of these then. These big ones must be for... Oh, wait a second. That does fit in there. But this one doesn't. Okay. Looks like they gave me an off bearing here. That's bad. Okay. This bearing is not the right size. My caliper battery is almost dead. Okay. Okay, that's 13. And we're supposed to have a 5 by 13 by 4. So there's our outer dimension. And this bearing they gave me is 14. So they gave me a missized bearing. Unbelievable. That's really lame. Okay, I'm gonna look through the directions and see if there is a 5 by 14 bearing somewhere. Maybe they put this in the wrong bag and my missing 5 by 13 is somewhere else in the kit. I guess I can I suppose it's possible I put the 13 in here because there is a 14. Well, let's have a look. This could be my bad, not theirs. That is kind of I don't know. That's a bad choice if that is the case, for them to have put a 1 millimeter different bearing where it's a single one out of all these parts. We have one 5x14, and it's amongst several 5x13s. Like, they couldn't see that could happen. I'll bet that's exactly what's going on here. Yep. My bad, but still, you know, why not make this a 5x13 also, or make both of those 5x14s? They're the same width, same inner diameter. Why make one that's different like that? I don't know. I just think that's a bad choice. Now, here's something that you can do. If I was more worried about water, which I'm really not at the moment, I'm not planning on doing a lot of splashing through, and I can always take things apart. Also, I don't know how sealed the outers are going to be anyway. I kind of need to get to know this kit. If I was trying to make this as waterproof as possible, I would take some of this black grease of theirs, and I would put a very thin bead of grease along this edge here, where it kind of has a step and kind of interlocks into this case here. And that would just prevent water from wicking into that gear case. But again, since we don't really know what the seal end is going to be like here, it may just be a bearing. In other words, the water could seep along, you know, through the bearing, along the axle shaft, you know, right on in anyway. So not necessarily worth the effort to do that. I mean, you know, it's kind of like air conditioning. If you don't have all the windows closed, it really doesn't matter if you still got one open. So there is something for you to watch out for in your build. Make sure that you've got that one slightly larger bearing and you put it in that housing here. Otherwise, you'll get to your portals and not be able to put them together. Okay, so we need these two pins. Put the pin through the rear hole. Take your gear with the slot in it and slide it down into place. And as long as we're at this point, we might as well do our grease. This is a really nice grease. It's specially designed to reduce wear and reduce noise. It's not very expensive, so you might consider it for your build. I got it at A-Main Hobbies along with the kit and pretty much everything that I'm putting into it. I definitely like A-Main. They're very large, so that their prices are competitive, and they give you bonus points. So the more money you spend, the more store credit you get. They offer a reasonable number of coupons. I just picked up another kit that I'll be talking about in the very near future. I'm going to be doing some indoor off-road racing this winter at a local track, and aside from the 1/8 scale Kyosho buggy that I'm going to be building and showing you everything about, I picked up another short course truck. I was thinking about taking the Slash that I use for on-road racing and just switching certain parts back and using that for off-road. And I may do that also just for kicks at some point, but I thought I'd rather get a dedicated short course race truck. And I was leaning toward the TLR, but I've never owned a Techno, and the Techno 410.3 is similar to the Losi in that it's a third generation short course truck. They're similar in a lot of ways in that they have, they both have 3 differentials, a center and a front and a rear. But the Techno went more from this is more of a 1/8 than a 1/10 vehicle. Even though the short course trucks are considered 1/10 scale, the weight of them and the size motor that's required to run the all-wheel drive systems in them really puts them into that A scale class. And so they put in 8th scale shocks. And I've got lots of extra springs for A scale shocks. If you've watched my Traxxas build for the road racing, the truck class, you know that I've put 1/8 scale Serpent GT road shock absorbers on that, and that really tightened down the car and kept it from nose diving every time I hit the brake and such. It solved all my shock absorber and suspension issues. And I've also heard that the Techno kits are just bulletproof, and so I thought I would try one. So I will be building that, even though it's a little dated as kits go. The short course truck arena hasn't had a lot of new kits coming out, but that may just be because they've reached a level where there's not much to improve upon. In any event, I'm going to be doing a full build on that, and I'm going to be racing that, and I will teach you all about it and give you my opinions. And so onward, we have we're just going to place this gear in here apparently, which can that fall straight through the other side? No, it can't. There does not appear to be a left or right side. Okay, sorry for the little stutter there, but the battery in the camera died. So, M2's 10 millimeter. Now, this gear, even though it's just kind of floating in there right now, it's going to get picked up, and the bearings are going to align to this axle stub right here. So this round end right here, the wide one, is going to drop into that big open bearing. The square fitting is going to pass through this gear, and then the round end will go into the bearing at the other end, and the cap right here. Just like with that, don't over tighten, don't tighten down right away, get them all in place and down and close to flush, and then go around in as much of a star pattern as you can with only 4 bolts. Oh, anyway, I was mentioning the Techno and A-Main Hobbies. I got $25 off on the truck because they had sent me several coupons, or coupon codes, basically, not actual coupons, but $25 off on a purchase over $250. So that got me the truck at $25 off, and then I ordered my motor ESC combo. I went with another Hobby Wing. Couldn't resist, since I've got the programming boxes and I've got the software on my system, and I've been having good luck with them. They're doing very nicely. Hobby Wing seems to have come a long way and are producing some really nice motors and ESCs. In any event, I got $15 off on that one because that was $15 on a purchase of $125 or more. Plus, all of those purchases will go to bonus points, which translates into cash value that I can spend at their store or in their online store. It ends up saving quite a bit if you shop with them on a regular basis, which I have been doing lately. And they're good about things. I'll give you an example. I had ordered a... They're going through some reorganization with their inventory systems and whatnot. They did a big software update or reorganization, because they have multiple facilities, so it's sometimes hard to know exactly what's in stock. And right now, if you order, let's say, 5 things, and one of those items turns out not to be in stock, they hold the entire order. They do contact you right away, but you've got to be checking your email and finding out that they, that the item has put your order on hold. In any event, I was waiting on a particular item that I needed for this weekend, and they were very nice about the fact that they had stopped the entire order over a $4 item, and they did expedited shipping for me on the other items that I needed, which was really great. And they don't know that I'm YouTubing. They don't know that I'm that I say nice things about them. I have no formal business relationship or even a casual business relationship with them at all. In any event, I'm just another customer to them, and they were very helpful. So okay, so now always kind of look over these things. Look for any places where they might say, hey, put some grease here, do this, do that. I'm surprised that they aren't saying to put a little bit of grease on this shaft and on the spade here, where these go into the drive. Even though they don't rotate, they do move a little bit, and I think that I'm going to at least put just the thinnest of coats of grease on them, just to make sure. So we put one bearing in here and one bearing in here. And see, this is the thing I was afraid of. You know, portal systems, it's hard to make any axle truly watertight, you know. But see, this axle right here is going to be in that bearing right there. Now water can wick in there. You can put some grease in here on here to try to prevent water from getting in there, and it's not going to flow in like a fountain, but it can certainly get in. So, you know, going overboard trying to gasket the pumpkin up and everything probably isn't worthwhile. Your best bet is to, anytime you go four-wheeling through water, you disassemble the drivetrain and put it back together. And that's something you should do periodically with crawlers anyway, but especially if you go through water. So, you know, what you do is up to you. I'm just trying to give you my advice based on my experience, trying to help you guys get as much longevity out of your kits as possible, do good builds, and have a fun time, and not have that fun be interrupted by things you could have otherwise prevented. Okay, these are the same size, yes, because the pumpkin is in the middle. Just confirming all that real quick. So now just rotate this until you feel it key in, and it'll drop right into that center diff. Now, you'll notice that it turns easily one way but not the other. That's because of the type of cut on those gears, as you saw. There's a bevel cut. There's a specific name for that. I can't remember off the top of my head. But let me put a little, since I've wiped that grease off. So, left or right? Let's see. Okay. Top, forward, and the axles are down. So, this way, because our steering is in front. So, now we can just kind of rotate that till it keys into the little gear in there. There we go. Yep, that turns that portal gear quite nicely. Okay. Now, they don't say to put grease on these, and that may be because of the type of plastic. So I am not going to put grease on them, but I am skeptical of that. So, let's see, there's our hole. Now this is also something you don't want to tighten down too much. How did I get that offline? There we go. Okay, get the other one started before I tighten the top one. Yeah, you don't need to tighten these down to bottom, just because you don't want to not be able to rotate. And we have nice, smooth rotation from here all the way to there. So, good things. And that is very nice. I mean, to be able to have that many bearings, that many gears, and to be able to turn this with my fingers says a lot for the way this is engineered. It's just great. So, front axle is assembled, no parts. Gotta love it. Okay. Set that aside, and we move on to the B section with bag B.
I hope you enjoyed this video. Please click like and please subscribe to my channel.